We'll wait a few minutes for others to join. Hi, Omar.
Hi, Hadar.
Okay, let's wait one more minute and then we'll start. All right. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining today. So this is part of our governance creation process that Sam is leading. So we did last week. We did the first meeting where we talked mostly about the vision and mission, and there were also some questions about how can we create money, and if this can be sustainable. And so this is a meeting. So this presentation purpose is to give a little bit of insight on how we see money and how we see the vision for and how it can benefit the whole ecosystem. So the first part, I'll talk a little bit about money. And in the second part, I'll talk about how we see the vision for GoodDollar money creation and money distribution. So the main problem of the commons is that it's very hard to get funding, as we all know, because the commons cannot be monopolized, so there's no profit. There's not a large profit incentive, so it's very hard to get funding. So one option is that there is a revolution or maybe an evolution of our economic system. But my take on it is that the solution for that is that we should print our own money that serves our purpose and is invested in the things that we care about. So a little bit about, so the way that we think about money, most of us, we think about money from analogy, right? We think about, if that's me, Hadar, and that's me with all my debt on my back, and all my piggy banks are broken and empty, and I'm feeling, I'm feeling stressed. I'm feeling that I'm in a very bad condition. And in the same way, we think that, okay, so if the government is in debt, then it's also must be a terrible thing, right? So we're doing this analogy, but we are not thinking about money from first principles, from how money really works. Yeah, I did this first presentation, the first half in Argentina, so I wanted to talk about there. I talked about a little bit about Milei there, the recent Prime Minister of Argentina, that he's all about implementing the neoliberal agenda. So his government stopped funding a lot of things. They're actually now, they're not in a deficit. They had a surplus in recent year. So the question that I asked is whether people think that under Milei there's more money printing or less money printing, right? And obviously most people would think that, because now the government doesn't spend a lot of money, they're actually saving money, then there's going to be a lot less money creation and money printing under Milei. But actually, in reality, we see that when Milei started, it's marked in black here, there's 39 trillion or 36 trillion Argentinian pesos in circulation, and currently there are 79 trillion pesos in circulation. So just in 2 years, we see that the money supply has more than doubled. So we see that, and it still grows exponentially. Right, so that's a little bit surprising. So where does all this money come from if the government is not spending money? Another way that we think about money from analogy is we think about that money is just it's a product, right? And it behaves by the rules of supply and demand, right? And here in the middle, the equilibrium point, that's how the price is determined of a product, right? So if there's a lot of supply of a product, then the price would go down. And if there's not a lot of this product going around, then the price of this product would go up. And it also depends on how many people actually want to buy this product, right? But when we think about money, I don't think there's anyone here, right? I asked when I did the presentation, who doesn't need more money, right? And everybody, nobody raised their hands. But when I asked who doesn't need another TV, most people raise their hands, right? So the demand for money is infinite. And as we see from as we saw, maybe according to what to the previous slide, we saw that maybe also the money supply is infinite. That's how it seems, right? We also know that the US money supply has been growing exponentially. So it doesn't seem like money behaves like a regular product, right? It has infinite supply and it has infinite demand. So that's also another wrong way to think about money. So we have to think about money from first principles, right? From how money really works in reality. And in reality, the money is created when banks issue loans, when private banks issue loans. So what happens here is that the bank issues a loan, and on his asset side, right, this is accounting bookkeeping, right? It's called double entry bookkeeping, and that's what every business, basically, when they submit the reports, that's what they do, right? They have on one side they have their assets, the thing that they have, the valuable things that they have, and on the other side they have their liabilities, like debt, things that they owe. So when a bank creates money, it only creates money when you come to the bank and ask for a loan. When your loan gets approved, then the bank writes on his asset side, he writes that now he has $1,000 worth of assets. Why? Because now you owe the bank $1,000 because he took a loan. But on the other hand, he writes in the deposits, right? Deposit is your banking account. Now he writes in your banking account that you have also $1,000, right? So this basically net out to zero because the bank has an asset of $1,000, but on the other hand, he owes you $1,000, right? That you can take out of your bank account now because he gave you a $1,000 loan. You can ask for cash or maybe transfer it to a different account. So this nets out to zero. And if we look at the customer status, then we see that now once the customer gets a loan, then his asset is the deposit, $1,000 in his assets, but now I, or the customer, now has a liability of $1,000 because he has to pay back money, the loan to the bank, right? So this is how money is created, right? And whenever we pay back the loan, then the money is being destroyed because you paid back the loan, so the bank no longer has this $1,000 asset because you paid the loan back, and your bank deposit is now zero because you paid all the money back. You don't have any more money. So it's really important to understand this equality, that money equals debt. In our modern system, there's no money without debt. Money equals debt. So when people talk about why that debt is really bad, we have to understand that without debt, there's basically no money. It's two sides of the equation. There are other identities in economics, for example, like that savings equals investments, right? If we want to have investments, we need to have savings. So, for example, when the government spends a lot of money, right? The government invests. Usually, there are bonds behind that, and who's saving with the bonds? Us, the public sector, the private sector. We use those bonds to save. So when the government invests, it actually creates an opportunity for us to save. Okay, so let's look at what happens at the aggregate, right? So what happens at the aggregate? Let's imagine that there's the government sector and there's the private sector, right? Us against the government. So when we take a loan from the bank, now we have $1,000, and also a liability of $1,000. And we pay taxes, $50 paid. Now the government now has more. Previously it didn't have any money, now it has $50 because we paid taxes. The government, on the other hand, it spent on us in investments, it spent $70. So, and now there's a minus $70 from their account. So at the end of the year, the government is left with a deficit, with a minus $20. But if we look at the aggregate, then the private sector, us, now we've become $20 richer. Okay, so when the government is in deficit, it has to balance. So on the other side, we are $20 more richer. Now, what happens if the government doesn't run a deficit? Okay, so the same thing happens. We pay $50 tax, but this time the government doesn't spend $70, it spent only $30 on us. So at the end of the year, the government now has a surplus. It has a $20 surplus, but now we, the private sector, we are poorer. We have less money in our accounts to spend. And what happens if, let's say, the government is balanced, right? Everybody talks about balancing the budget. So what happens if the government has a balanced budget? So we pay taxes $50, the government spends $50, and the government is balanced at the end of the year. It has $0 in its account. But now we forgot to mention the banking sector, the bank where we took the loan from. We have to pay interest to the bank. So this time we also add this row here where we also pay the interest. We pay, let's say, $20 of interest to the banking sector. So now the banking sector is $20 richer, and we have $20 less in our accounts. So it actually means that the government, by spending or by creating a deficit, actually helps the private sector to pay its bills, to pay its interest, to pay its loans, right? Because we said there's no money without the private sector taking loans, right? So if we don't take loans to build businesses, we don't take loans for mortgage and so on, there won't be money in circulation. So we have to take these loans so there's money in circulation. But then again, in order to pay the money back, right, it's going to be very hard if the government doesn't spend the money on the private sector. Okay, any questions? Any questions so far? Okay, great. Mary, let me know if there are any questions in the chat. So I'll stop. Maybe I'll stop once in a while. All right. So who's to blame for all that money printing? This is an example of the U.S. economy, and in red we see the private banking sector activity, and in blue that's the Federal Reserve activity. Okay, so we see that 90% of the money creation, right? This is 2000 and 2024. We can see that 90% of the money creation is being done by private banking, okay, by us, by the private sector, taking loans from the bank. That's what creates most of the money supply. Now, the Federal Reserve does create, they also still create money, because the government basically controls the money creation. So they do create money, to stabilize the economy, for different things, right? But still, we see that it's only 10% of the total money creation, right? So if we want to blame someone for inflation, then maybe we have to blame ourselves for taking so many loans from the banking sector. Maybe we need to take responsibility over that. But then there's the question of, right, what's the key decision to make when creating money, right? Because we understand that maybe too much money creates this inflation, the price inflation. So when we create money, let's say that we can decide, right, what to spend it on. What do we do with the money that we create? What do we do with the money that we took a loan for, right? So maybe the money could be taken to speculate on the market, right? Or maybe the money could be taken and develop new businesses, build more houses, and so on, right? Build more products, right? And if we remember the demand and supply curve from the beginning, if we are creating more products, then the price of the product, if there's more supply, then the price of the product needs to go down, right? So if we take the money and use it for productive things, then we actually have the power to reduce prices, even though we are creating more money, but because we use this money to create more products, then we have the ability to actually reduce prices. So even though the money supply grows, the prices can go down, right? So coming back to Milei, how is it that so much money was created in Argentina under Milei, but still the inflation is actually seems to be relatively, right, under control? How did that happen, right? So I don't know. I don't have the full answer, but my guessing is that it's all about expectations, right? Because money creation always happens. It depends. It's expectations of the public. Are the prices going of the businesses? Are the prices going to go up? So maybe now that Milei is in charge and he's saying, hey, the government is not spending that much anymore. Maybe people feel more comfortable to take loans and start investing in businesses and so on. And that's why there's still so much money creation. Maybe actually it increased the money creation because maybe people now actually have more trust in the economy. So they are taking more loans, and that creates more money. So Marcelo, do you have a question there? You wrote a long paragraph. Okay, feel free to, so if anyone have any questions or any comments, now is the time. Marcelo, you want to say something?
Yes, like the question is, because here in Brazil, during the 90s, actually during the 80s, we had the Brazilian miracle, which means the economy grew like 11% in a year, and without like a huge inflation. And in the same year, the inequality in the country raised by 30-something%. So in like number terms, there were like more money in the economy and less inflation. But in practical terms, it was the first time in the Brazilian history that people actually like assaulted supermarkets for food.
Mm-hmm.
Like crowds of people assaulting supermarkets. So that's my question. Like in practical terms, what is the difference between the centralization of money in hedge funds and banks and the government? Like both will decide when the money will hit the economy, when we will be available for people to take loans, for companies, for startups, for small business. So in practical terms, what is like the main difference? And it's a very genuine question because I don't know the difference.
I'm thinking, so what I'm thinking is, so obviously it depends on who controls the money supply and what for, right? So theoretically, I also saw this video recently. Theoretically, the 50 lower percent of the population can actually not participate in any economic activity, but still the other 50% create all the economic activity, and we're going to see growth, and they are going to enjoy from this growth, right? So it all depends who has access to the money that's being created, right? And this is why we are here today, right, to talk about that we don't have, when we want to fund the things that are important for us, we don't have the money to do that because we don't have access to the banking system, to investments, because these are not the things that they would like to invest in. But that's also part of the government role, right? The government role is to allocate funding to the places that which are underfunded, which the private sector doesn't want to do. All right. Another thing about money, or maybe Bitcoin, because we're talking about digital currencies today. So with Bitcoin, we were told that money can be apolitical, right? Money can be non-political. We don't need politics to control money. We have code, and the code is law. We don't have to trust anyone. But actually, we do have to trust the coders, right? The people. We see a lot of bugs in money in the blockchain world, right? So we need to trust the developers. We need to trust the people that are shilling Bitcoin or other currencies. There's a claim that no supply means no manipulation, but actually we see that fixed money supplies, it encourages hoarding, right? It gives more power to the first come, first served. The people that come late, they are in a disadvantage. We are told that decentralization removes elites, but we see in Bitcoin and in the market now that we have new elites, right? We have the whales, and we have the miners, and these are the new elites. And we are told that math can replace central banking, but math cannot react to real life, to different economic terms, different economic situation where we actually need to change the math to adapt to the new situation. So there really can't be money without governance, right? Without us controlling the money. Okay, so to summarize, money printing principles is it's okay to print money, right? That's how money works. Money is being created all the time. We see that money grows since the last crisis. It grows really exponentially. But it's very important to allocate money to productive things, right? In order to not create an inflation, and to use it for the things that we actually need. Money needs to be political. It has to be governed, right? Like Marcelo described, who has access to the money that's being created, right? So it's imperative that it's political. But lastly, and this is the important thing here, that it needs community commitment, right? Sort of a monopoly over money, right? Every government or every state has monopoly over money. Why? Because then you enjoy the seigniorage. The seigniorage is what you earn from being able to create money, right? So us, if we want to have our own money, we have to unite. If we want to be able to fund the things that are important to us, we have to unite around the money that serve us. So as an example, I can take, we can think about USDC and GoodDollar, not to be confused with GoodDollar. GoodDollar is another stable token that works the same way as USDC. It's backed by, it's one token is worth $1 and it's backed by government bonds. But the difference between them is that the interest earned on these government bonds for USDC, it goes to Circles, the company that created that creates USDC. And with GoodDollar, most of the interest that is created goes back and donated back to the community to refi projects that that support GoodDollar, right? So we have this option: for using stable tokens, should we use USDC or should we use GoodDollar, right? So this has to be a conscious decision by us, by the community, that we want to use GoodDollar. Okay, so that was the first part about money and why money printing is fine, because what we do is at GoodDollar is basically we want to scale money creation. That's what we've been doing for over 5 years, and so far we've been funding universal basic income, but we also want to fund other things. Yeah, Kotabe.
GM. Oh, the camera. I'm in the phone, so my front camera doesn't work. Sorry.
It's a nice
No,
view.
I just wanted. Thanks. Just wanted to drill down a little bit on the friction on the topic of like if money should be political, and I think a couple of things to consider is or are one, like I do believe I love the idea of programmable money and be able to embed values on money. I think that's a transformative idea. But on the other hand, if it's very political, but only a few people have a lot of power over how it is managed, like, and if it works like most politics in most countries everywhere in the world, a few people make decisions for a lot of people, and that gives them a lot of power. So I think that there is an interesting friction there. And one thing that I do like about Bitcoin is the reliability on like predictability and reliability of like these kind of things are rules. So I just I think that there are a lot of nuances there on how political it should be, and so that's kind of like my general comment. And I wanted to know your thoughts on the nuances of money policy.
Well, of course, you're right. We talked about it. It all matters who controls the money. So like I also said, like Bitcoin, okay, it's it's predictable, but okay, but whoever got in first has much more power than people that are now coming in. But I completely agree, and that's also, I think, the challenge when we are redesigning the governance is how to balance those things, right? Maybe there could be some things that are predictable, right? Maybe a certain amount always has to go to, for example, let's say universal UBI, universal basic income. Okay, maybe there are some fundamentals that are part of, let's say, the constitution, right? And to change the constitution, you need a lot more. It's much harder than just changing other rules, right? So yes, obviously that's the main challenge also in any DAO governance nowadays. Okay, so let's continue. So I wanted now to cover like a little bit. That's the vision of how we see, how I see mostly, or how we see the future of money allocation in GoodDollar, right? So today we started with UBI, which creates the basic money supply and demand for goods and services because people have money to spend. Today we are allocating the UBI for everyone, and in the future we want to be able to allocate money to specific communities, right? How do we choose these communities, right? It's also a question of governance, right? There's also going to be power dynamics here. But because the money is spread on so many people, it's not able to have a good, large impact, and allocating it to specific communities could have a much greater impact. And one of the assumptions is that, okay, so we give a little bit of money for communities, but what the cost of product and so on is going to be larger than the UBI that they get. So in order for them to purchase things, they will have to convert their fiat currency to GoodDollars in order to purchase things in GoodDollars, right? Obviously, there has to be some kind of a trade-off. If you agree with communities that you fund them, then maybe the agreement has to be that some of their economic activity happens in GoodDollars, right? In order for there's to be a mutual benefit for both parties. The ecosystem liquidity layer. So when we're looking at the ecosystem, like with projects like Gardens, Breadcorp, Flow State, GoodDollar, Superfluid, and so on, all the refi projects, right? Something that can benefit both parties, the ecosystem, is giving incentives or matching funds for projects that have their treasury in GoodDollar, that do donations in GoodDollar, give out grants in GoodDollars, and so on, right? So the more, instead of distributing grants in USDC, why not distribute them in GoodDollar, okay, or in GoodDollar? That's the best part, right? Because in GoodDollar we also control the money supply. So the more GoodDollars are in circulation, when people convert the USDC to GoodDollar, the GoodDollar price goes up. There's more GoodDollar in supply, so it enables us to create more money, right? So the ecosystem growth, it means that we can then distribute more matching funds in GoodDollar, right? So it's this virtuous, this flywheel or virtuous cycle. So for example, let's think about Gardens, right? Gardens is a protocol or a service for communities to hold their treasury, right? So instead of just holding your treasury in USDC, hold your treasury in GoodDollars, and you might get matching funds. So basically get more on your money. Credit, okay, we can distribute money for credit, maybe near zero interest credit to businesses, communities, to commitment pools. And the assumption with credit is basically that credit, when they get paid out, there's net, it results in net zero price change, right? Because when people get credit, they might cash it out for stable coins or fiat currencies, so that will reduce the GoodDollar price. But when they pay it back, they have to buy GoodDollar back, and that pushes the GoodDollar price back up. And what's important here is the business transactions that happens, that the business, when it took credit, then it obviously creates some kind of economic activity, and that's what's important here. As long as this economic activity is actually in GoodDollars, then that can create more demand for GoodDollars. Yes, Kotabe?
Sorry, this might be a dumb question, but is there a staking of G?
Is there staking of GoodDollar?
Yeah.
Yeah, so currently there is staking. It's some kind of an older system, but Sam is going to talk about how he sees governance, then he'll talk about more about how we see staking. But I like, he mentioned, and I also mentioned, like let's think about like bread cooperative. You can buy bread token, and then by the amount of bread tokens or the amount that you stake, you can decide how the bread grants are distributed, or similar things like with how Celo public goods are distributing their grants. If you stake, then you have more power to decide how to distribute. But yeah, there is some kind of GoodDollar staking mechanism. It's not used that much. There's actually a lot of legacy funds staked there, but it's not that we want to rethink that. Another thing that we can have is cashbacks, right, to incentivize actual users to buy goods and services with GoodDollar over other currencies, right? So if there are different businesses that have to be, I guess they have to be verified or voted in some way, and when users buy goods and services from these businesses, they can get cashback. Of course, again, when you talked about staking, right, in order to have a skin in the game, we would want to have those buyers or seller have GoodDollar staked or saved in order to be eligible for these cashbacks. And again, the assumption here is that you would have to buy more GoodDollars for staking, also for paying for the product, and that would increase the demand for GoodDollars. And we want to do all these. So how do we decide, right? How do we decide on all these? How do we allocate all these funds? So we want to do the money allocation through governance. So it starts from the reserve where all money is created. And as an example, you see on the left side here, UBI, 50% can go to UBI. And then we can decide there's this flow council, there's this council here that we don't have the exact dynamics of how everything is going to work, but just to point that there's some kind of a governance decision here that needs to be done. Okay, maybe then 50% goes to global UBI, 50% would go to communities, and the same thing for the other allocations, right? We can allocate funds for the money that we create for investments, savings, and so on. So any questions? Any questions about the liquidity layers example or vision? Or any comments? Okay, great. So yeah, so moving to the last part, and the main question is it sustainable, right? Can we create money that's sustainable? So just as an example, right, Bitcoin creates around, I don't know, $50 million a day to fund what? To fund these huge data centers. What are they doing? They are solving this, right? They're solving this hash of the block has to be smaller than this target difficulty. That's basically what they do. They do all day. Not very productive, but that's what people feel that makes Bitcoin unique. That's the narrative around it, and people, why doesn't Bitcoin price crashes? Right, all this money being created because nobody sells. They don't sell most of their Bitcoin. They are holding their Bitcoin, and more people are buying Bitcoin than people are selling, and the price goes up. That's the basic mechanics of it. Is there something tangible behind it? That's a thing for debate, right? We know that there are many other blockchains that seems to be just as secure. They don't need all this money to run to be spent on data centers. And So we know that Bitcoin has a market cap, I don't know, of 1 trillion nowadays. Bitcoin has a market cap of 1 trillion, but what is the actual liquidity behind it? So I asked GPT. I don't know how correct it is, but it seems it sounds reasonable. If the price would move 1 or 2%, then maybe there's $1 billion worth of liquidity there. If the price of Bitcoin would crash 10%, then maybe another 5 billion, and 20-30% crash, maybe $20 billion would able to absorb the price movement, right? So we see that if it had a market cap of 1 trillion, but in real liquidity terms, right, it only has maybe 5%, right? Maybe 5% of its market cap, you could actually find liquidity, right? So that means that the value of Bitcoin is highly leveraged, right? Maybe 20 times more, right? So that means that we can create money that's leveraged, right? And that's the same way that GoodDollar works, right? We have this reserve, that's the liquidity, and this liquidity is always there. It doesn't run, right? It's not like liquidity provider on exchanges. This liquidity is there. It doesn't run away when the price goes down. And on top of that liquidity, we create a leverage, right? So if there's $300,000 in the reserve, the market cap of GoodDollar might be worth $1 million, right? That's the same. That's the leverage that's created, and that's the idea behind GoodDollar, that we have a reserve and we leverage that to create money. And as long as people, and that brings us to the second question, right? Can we create money then to fund these, right? All of the ecosystem that we have, and instead of solving this equation, we can try and solve other things like public goods, underfunding, inequality, poverty, climate, health, and so on, right? Can we create money for this purpose? There's no reason if people created Bitcoin, what's so special there? So that brings us to I think the main point. So first of all, we've been printing money for over 5 years, right? And the GoodDollar didn't crash. We did have a hack, right? And that's the trust problem. You have to trust the people that built the systems. But just like Bitcoin, right, we have to decide that we are becoming GoodDollar maximalists, right? That we hold some of our savings, we are staking GoodDollar, we are using GoodDollar to distribute grants and donations and so on. We're using that for commerce, right? Because that's the way all economies, all currencies work. If more people are buying than selling, then the value grows, or it can stay the same if it's equal, right? That's both ways is good enough, right? So that's true for everything. So instead of being Bitcoin maximalists, we have to be commons maximalists and work and support the currencies that work for us. And so there's always a business cycle, right? The business cycle is normal, right? That here, for example, right, more people are, in the beginning, maybe more people are buying GoodDollars than selling, right? So we are distributing the grants, the credit and everything, and projects are converting their grants to GoodDollars and distributing it, and the value goes up. We're distributing more, but then the people that received the grants and funding and so on, they are selling it, and they start selling things. They start cashing out cashing out good dollars. But the important thing is, so that's normal, and it could be even that they are selling, maybe they are selling a lot of good dollars, maybe they are selling little. But in the long term, obviously, like in any economy, if more people are going to, if people are going to save some of what they earn in good dollars, some of their profit, some of their grant money, they're going to save, stake it, and so on, then we're going to have this gradual growth, right, with some peaks and contractions in the middle. But that's how always the business cycle works. So you can think about like a system that's breathing, right? So it's contracting and expanding all of the time. And we've seen that currently most people, right, they tend to save good dollars, and we see a gradual, we've seen through the 5 years that we've been doing this, there is a gradual growth in the value of good dollar. And when there were bear markets, the contraction was relatively lower than other currencies. And lastly, so this is all about, right? So it's all about governance, and eventually it's all about governance and about reacting to what's happening, right? So we'll have to measure things, right? How money functions in community, what's the money velocity in communities? Are the communities that we are partnering with, are they actually trading, buying goods and services with good dollars? Are there credit defaults? Do the project partners that we work with, do they buy good dollars? Do they stake them? How do they use them? The businesses, what's the volume that they generate, and so on. And we have all these governance levers that we can use. What would be the money creation rate? Where do we allocate the money to? How much we give to cashbacks? What would be the interest rates, if at all? What's the saving rate that we are giving for people that are staking good dollars? What's the reserve exit fee, right? So today there's a tax. If you sell your good dollars back to the reserve, you have to pay a certain tax. Maybe we want to introduce a transaction tax. So everything is about, right, reacting to the situation at hand. So we have all the tools to make it sustainable, and also to react if we see that things are not working as expected. All right, so that's that. Thank you for participating. We have time for more questions. I just want to I'll share these links in the chat. So we have this survey feedback that we like to have your thoughts about the good dollar vision, right? We want to understand what things make sense, what doesn't make sense, and what's important for the community as part of our co-governance process and part of our strategy rethink. So that would really help us if you fill out this form. And we also have the next community CoGov is going to be in January, and there's also the forum where there's discussions. I don't know, Mary, if you want to share, if you have the link to the Telegram group. I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah, I'll share in the chat now.
Okay, let's see. Okay, so I shared the links in the chat. If you can fill the survey, that would be really, really great. All right, so I want to leave some space for thoughts, comments, and yeah, questions. Yeah, go ahead.
How do you see? I told you I was with Faircoin Hackathon at some point. How do you see the incentives to be when you, for the individual and for the communities, for both like the groups and the individuals, to hold one currency like $1 in a world that has a lot of currencies and others are appreciating and sometimes at a faster rhythm or not. Like if there is Bitcoin, there is Ethereum. What do you think that is the incentive for the user and the communities to hold a large portion of their treasury in $1?
So, okay, so if we go back to the incentives, so that's the whole point of the liquidity layers, which are basically the incentive, right? So we can look at the that's the UBI. Let's think about that, right? So here, basically, we're talking about for a project, we're talking about matching funds for their treasury, right? Let's say, I don't know, Bread Corp, they generate from the interest on their token, they distribute, I don't know, $4,000 a month. If they get another $1,000 a month, maybe that's significant, maybe that's worth it, or maybe they get some kind of, I don't know, $500 a month into their treasury. So that would be the incentive, right? That you can get more money on your treasury. That's one thing. And the way to allocate these incentives can be right according to how much good dollars you have staked. Other incentives are that you can also affect, right? Where do you want? It's the same thing that right, how you can also affect where do you want the other incentives to go to, right? If we are talking about credit, or if we are talking about cashbacks, right? Who's eligible to receive these incentives? So that's the main thing. And the other thing is that you have to be committed. Ideology. It has to be some kind of an ideology behind it, right? It's the same way why people are Bitcoin maximalists, right? It's not that they believe that that's what's going to be, that's the next thing, then that's what preserves their wealth, right? And we have to create, it's the same thing. I believe that we have to create this narrative that $GoodDollar is the token for the commons, and if we want to fund the commons, we have to use this currency, and that's what's going to have the commons growth. And it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more people hold it, then there's more funds to distribute, more incentives to distribute, and it creates a self-fulfilling prophecy where you can then fund more things from the commons. And yeah, and definitely the governance that we see here, the money allocation has to be somehow tied to the amount of good dollars that you have staked. So we have to create this alignment. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you very much. That's very interesting. I like it.
Okay, anyone, any other questions? Comments? What are your thoughts? Okay, I hope you'll be more, maybe I hope that the survey, you'll be more responsive to the survey than to me. I know that I can be a little bit intimidating.
I mean,
I have one more. Oh, go ahead, Zach.
I was just gonna say, I really like the idea of creating a currency, right? Like that is kind of one of the biggest things is governments really control money and they really control the flow of money. And banks obviously are very well, paired with governments, and unfortunately that is the case. So like having a currency like this, I think, is a huge thing. I guess I was curious, do you guys have any like transparency kind of metrics built in? Like, say, X amount of people are using GoodDollar, or, you're printing, X amount of GoodDollars. What does that money go to, right? Like, what are you funding, like, besides UBI, or,
so today 90%, so there's a dashboard. I hope that it's updated, but basically today, all of the money that's being created, 90% goes to UBI and 10% goes to the community treasury. And the treasury is not really active, and that's one thing that we want to start activating as part of the governance co-creation process that we are doing, to start having the GoodDollar community and partner projects, much more involved in the whole process. But today 90% goes to universal UBI and 10% goes to the community treasury.
Okay, so like for that UBI, what does that look like? Like, who does that go to? Is that like token holders, or like, people who participate in the ecosystem? Is that kind of the UBI?
So the UBI is universal. You have to go through, the only thing that's centralized is the uniqueness verification. We have to verify that you're a unique human being. We do that using face verification. It's anonymized face verification. We make sure that your face is unique in a database of faces. There's no connection between the face and the wallet address. The moment that you are verified that your face is unique, then your wallet address is whitelisted, and you can claim from the pool, from the UBI pool. Every day there's money distribution, and every day people can claim. And you can see it. You can see it on the dashboard, and you can just go to the. You can open a wallet here, or Good Wallet at XYZ, or you can, if you want to use one of your own existing wallets, you can do it here on goodapp.org. And currently it's open for everyone, and that's why we were talking about community UBI, right? To maybe distribute some of the money to more targeted communities or smaller communities where it can have a larger impact, right? Rather than today, everybody getting a few cents a day.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
What are you working on, Zach?
What am I working on?
Yeah.
So I'm building a monthly recurring donation protocol for nonprofits. So essentially we built kind of an ecosystem on Ethereum that kind of facilitates monthly recurring donations, I guess, through an autonomous treasury. So everything's kind of like fully automated there. So I guess it's interesting kind of seeing obviously you're trying to create a currency, and we're kind of creating something a little bit different, but it's interesting kind of the governance wise, right? Because we really are at least.
So from our point of view, that's exactly the sort of the kind of partners that could work. If you're distributing your donations, right, converting them to GoodDollars, then you get extra matching on those donations, and you can donate more GoodDollars to different causes. Also, just an interesting fact is that GoodDollar is a super fluid token. I don't know if you're familiar with the protocol, but basically it allows you to stream money. So you can think about it like a subscription, right? That money flows every second. So I can donate, I can subscribe to your wallet address, and I can send you $0.00 every second. Right, so GoodDollar is also, so it enables you to create those kind of streaming subscriptions, so you don't have to do these recurring payments, right? So you don't have to do this transaction, the donation transaction every month. You can create this subscription, right? So as long as you have funds in your wallet, the stream stays open.
Yeah, that is interesting. And I'm obviously like pretty new to GoodDollar, right? Like I'm, this is probably, I've been learning more about it, but this is kind of like my first, meeting with you guys, listening to kind of how you design this kind of structure. So it is very interesting. And yeah, I think it would be interesting. Like I'm kind of going through this meeting, I was kind of like thinking of ways to like kind of integrate it with our own kind of work. But
yeah, so sure, we have a builders program also, and where people that integrate with GoodDollar can get some small grants. So yeah, please keep in touch.
yeah, we'll do. Appreciate it.
Kotabe, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I forgot my question. Sorry.
Let's hope it wasn't something really, really important. All right. Okay, so thank you, everyone. And yeah, please don't forget to fill the survey. It's really important for us. And yeah, thank you for participating.
Thanks, Hadar.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
everyone.
Ada. Thank you. Very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hada. Good meeting you again.
Hi, Diogo.
Thank you.
Marco, are you there? Lawrence.
Yes.
No, okay, Lawrence. It was by Lawrence. Okay. Yeah, I think I saw what you just now. I saw what you wrote. Yeah, definitely. That's a mechanism that's interesting, right? To reward users for saving good dollars. That's definitely.
Make sure to follow up on my GitHub issue I added for NanoPay or what? Oh, I just saw this
I
now.
don't know. Yeah, Lawrence. I think Lawrence left. So.
Yeah. So basically, what I was saying is just also as a way to prevent civil. So now almost like 50 people already are using GoodDollar within NanoPay, and it's also an incentive for them to come back kind of every day to get, even if it's like a very small amount. But I'm not just focused on the dollar amount. What I'm doing is like you can buy. So basically, for each 10 GoodDollars, you can buy 1 XP, and then with 100 XP, you can get 1 USDC saved automatically on your behalf on Aave. And everything is very smooth. So people kind of are claiming that they don't have an option to sell the GoodDollar, but when they click get USDC, they get automatically like as a savings account USDC. So basically, like it's a way to incentivize them to save. Then they see the number going up with a lot of like decimal cases on Aave, so that they have that kind of perception of, okay, I'm saving in this asset that is kind of GoodDollar. I verify my identity so it's not civil, and I understand savings in dollars. So that's kind of the path. And with XP, they also have like a mini chat that is like kind of like ChatGPT or Grok. And they can use for each 1 XP, it's like 1 question they can make. So they have access to AI and they have access to savings, like using like the GoodDollars that they are not selling.
I really like also the AI services thing. But why? But today, what's your chat better than, because ChatGPT is mostly free, right?
Well, all the communities that I've been onboarding in Uganda, they never even heard about it.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's now they are crazy. Oh, how can I ask questions in my own language and it answers? But then they have to go and find about it. But now they have like something that incentivizes them to use, like a very lightweight wallet that works on their browser, and there is a chat there, and they just ask stuff, and that it replies, and using like the XPs for using the wallets. That's so basically it's like democratizing access to AI, but in a more simple way.
Yeah, that's really nice. I'm guessing maybe Lawrence maybe wrote you about the proof of ship. Maybe I'm guessing because we were just going over the proof of ship submissions, and we're going to start. The plan is to start like the engagement rewards competition in January, beginning of January. So we're looking for the projects that we're doing. They were going over the integrations, which projects are valid for the competition. Maybe he wrote something for you on your.
Let me see my GitHub then.
All right, take care. Good seeing you.
See you.